We're starting this broadcast with politics, diplomacy and war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued his most audacious demand yet, declaring that Ukraine will seek nuclear weapons if it is not granted the NATO membership. Russian President Vladimir Putin has termed the nuclear demand as dangerous provocation. So our next story decodes why NATO isn't buying Zelensky's so-called victory plan.
Ukrainian forces are being forced to retreat almost every day as the Russian troops continue to march forward and gain new ground. Ukraine is evacuating thousands of people from the embattled northeastern town of Kupiansk, a key rail hub in the Kharkiv region. It has suffered deadly shelling in recent months. With the battlefield losses mounting, President Zelensky has put forward his most brazen demand yet. Speaking to his European allies in Brussels, he demanded that Ukraine must either join NATO or pursue nuclear weapons to ensure its survival.
Talking to Donald Trump, I told him, what is the way out? Either Ukraine will have nuclear weapons and then this is defense for us, or we should have some kind of an alliance. Today we do not know any effective alliances other than NATO. NATO countries are not in a war.
While Zelensky asserts that US presidential candidate Donald Trump has agreed to his demand, the reality appears more complex. Trump blames Zelensky for instigating the conflict with Russia and taunts him as a salesman who keeps coming back to America and gets $100 billion each time. The writing on the wall is clear. If Trump wins the November 5 polls, it would mean a potentially radical shift in US's Ukraine policy. With that in mind, President Joe Biden rushed to Berlin to shore up support for Kiev.
We had a very difficult winter. We cannot let up. We must sustain our support. In my view, we must keep going until Ukraine wins a just and durable peace consistent with the UN Charter. Until once again, human dignity prevails.
Zelensky's demand for nuclear weapons, however, carries heavy historical irony. Ukraine once possessed the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal, inherited from the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. In what he now describes as a critical mistake, Kiev surrendered these weapons in 1994 in exchange for security guarantees from Russia, Britain and the United States. So far, those guarantees have been proved worthless for Ukraine when Russia invaded in 2022. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, time for some perspective now. Joachim Bitterlich is joining us on this broadcast, former German ambassador to NATO. He's joining us live from Berlin. Ambassador, good to see you again.
A pleasure as always.
It was back in 1994, Ambassador, that Ukraine agreed to give up its nuclear arsenal in exchange for receiving security guarantees from the United States. Today, Kiev is almost threatening the West for it. How do you think this is going to sit with Washington, D.C.?
Well, please bear in mind, no one is telling you that the Memorandum of Budapest 1994, where Ukraine has given back the nuclear weapons of the Soviet Union to Russia, has been at the same time, in my personal view, an agreement to disagree. The Ukrainians thought that the Russians recognize the independence of the Ukraine, but I don't think that the Russians had the same thinking in mind at that period. Insofar, I understand Zelensky's critical thinking on that memorandum. I understand it.
So do you think it's a fair ask?
Well, when he says either NATO or nuclear weapons, Well, for me, it's not a provocation. It's either a delusion of grandeur or it signifies the desperate situation in which Zelensky and the Ukraine are or seem to be. And perhaps we underestimate the reality on the ground. In the north, where the Russians are winning back territory in the Kursk region, where they come forward around Kharkiv, and in the east, they win village by village. And therefore, perhaps this contributes to a certain situation of depression on the side of Ukrainians and of Zelensky. He is looking for more weapons, for more support, for faster support, and even for support of people, men. He has not enough manpower, let's say, to stop the Russians. The Russians have been weak, let's say, in the first year of this war. But the Russians are winning step by step territory they have occupied before. And I think Ukraine is in a dangerous situation. But asking for nuclear weapons under these conditions, no. I think it's a total illusion. It's even dangerous.
Right.
I understand his demand for NATO, but his peace plan or victory plan, he has explained yesterday to the heads of governmental states of the European Union, has been taken there with a certain reluctance, to say diplomatically. And a German newspaper is writing this afternoon his headline with, Zelensky is running against the wall.
Right.
It's a dangerous situation.
All right, Ambassador, you said Russia is weak, but as things stand, Russia does have the upper hand in the war, at least right now.
Yes.
So I have to ask you this. Do you think the United States and the West has done everything to protect Ukraine, or do you come from the school of thought that it has failed its as long as it takes promise?
Well, Russia has been weak in the beginning of the war, underestimating the Ukrainian resistance. Russia is winning back step by step. Let's be careful with any judgment about this. Ukrainians are in a difficult position now, in a difficult situation, where Russia is, let's say, in a certain offensive position, and Ukrainians more and more on the defensive side. And therefore, it's true, we have been helping, yes. If I take, for example, the amount of the EU and its member states till now in favor of Ukraine, military, humanitarian, economic, finance, it's about 120 billion euro.
Right.
It's an amount, if you want. On the other hand, it's true, we have not done, let's say, the right things from the beginning. I'll give you one example. The Ukrainians have been asking for tanks, for heavy tanks, but they didn't need really many heavy tanks. They needed artillery. They needed planes. They have developed a new weapons, it's drones. Therefore, they are even helping the West. But as a matter of fact, we have perhaps been helping much, but did we do always the right assistance? Question mark.
All right, Ambassador Bitterlich, thank you so much for your insights. It's always good to speak to you. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.